Slido, or you go to slido.com and you enter that code. And I just kind of want a sense for whether people have used iNaturalist before, whether they use it often. That kind of this session, I've prepared a few slides, but there's a lot of different ways that session can be run. So it's good to know who's in the room. So I'll give it, yeah, it's still going. Yeah. So there's a few, yeah, heard of it, never tried.
Not a lot of experts.
Log observations every now and then. People who don't know what that is, which I'll explain. That's all fine. People who log observations a few times. And a few experts. And I will say there's some fabulous contributors here and here and around the room and in inside that are contributing a lot. So this session's meant to be really interactive. I'm sitting here trying to give advice, but there's a lot of other experiences, and please, Tiffany, Imogen, whoever uses it, feel free to jump in and add in your tips and advice. So that's the first question. So yeah, about more than 50% have heard of it, never tried. So I'll switch to the next question. If yes, okay. Is that working? Next question is more so about what people think they will get out of it.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. So if you were going to use iNaturalist in the current state of what you know about it, which I'll explain a bit more, what would be your sort of motivations? Do you want to contribute to science more, keep better record of the marine life you see, become better at identifying things that you see underwater, to know what to expect in terms of marine life in different places? And that could be, I want to know what's at Sorrento because I've never dived there, or it could be, I want to know what's in Hill Sualese because I have an awesome trip going there and I've never been and I want to know what's there. And if you put other reasons, whether you're online or in the room, can you just say what that is? Anyone who put other reasons in there want to share? I don't know if it's here in the chat. Either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and just tell us what other reasons you might have to use iNaturalist. And that's sort of will give me, because I can run a lot of different examples, but I want to know what's more useful for people here.
So Kara said I put other because I use it for all of those.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
So you missed the all of the above.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's yeah, the poll was a bit rushed, but that's a good point. So yeah, and yeah, it's not a judgment. Any reason is valid. And yes, so you can have several different reasons, but yeah, so to contribute to science more and to become better at identifying marine life seem to be the top one. So I'll try to focus on that. And I sort of prepared examples, but this is useful for me what to cover because I'm not sure how much time we'll have to run through the different ideas I had. So that's good. I will start sharing that and I'll move to my short presentation.
Yeah, look at you.
Share.
Yeah.
Well, I need to share first, I think. Yep. Share. Is that not full screen yet? That's full screen now. No, not there.
Yes,
yes, no, it is. Okay, all right. So I've put my email address there at the bottom. I'm very happy to answer any questions. If anyone has any issues or try things and that doesn't work, please feel free to email me. But essentially, I'll sort of run you through the basics of iNaturalist and run through examples of how to do various things on iNaturalist and what the benefits might be to you and to the scientific community. All right, so what's iNaturalist to start with? So iNaturalist is a citizen science platform. So what is citizen science? So it's when people that are in their day job, not scientists, participate and contribute scientific data that can be used by people like me, by scientists running different programs. And iNaturalist has two forms of programs. There's some structured programs where an organization's running, whether it's a not-for-profit or a university or whatever, is running a program, has some aims, has some questions, and are asking people to do specific things. VNPA, Victorian National Parks Association, runs the sea slug census. Their call to action is go and find sea slugs, take photos, log them on iNaturalist so we know what's out there for sea slugs. And that has a bunch of aims in terms of looking at sea slug distribution, in terms of looking what might be changing with climate change, because sea slugs are very good indicators of because they have such specific requirements. Having them in one place means that the environment is right for them and is stable. And if you start changing the assemblages of sea slugs that you see, you might want to investigate what's going on in different places. So they are sort of structured programs, and the one that I run at Deakin, Spotted Crab Watch is one of them as well. So we only focus on spotted crab, and we have specific questions on spotted crabs, and that's what we're interested in. So this is one type of projects on iNaturalist, and the other type is unstructured, where people log things at their leisure. So I saw dolphins on Hogan. That was really, really cool. I want to log that. And so, you have a photo. You don't have to have photos. I'll go through that. But ideally, you'd have photos and you'll log something. I saw goblin fish at Sorrento. Really cool. I want to keep a record of that. I'll log on iNaturalist. And that's my record. It helps scientists, obviously, but that's also for your own sort of sake to keep your own records. So I'll actually switch to the iNaturalist website. So I'll stop sharing and I will move to, move to here, go home, so share. And it's that one, go home, yes. Okay, so when you need to have an account on iNaturalist, but when you do, that's pretty much the page you have. So I kind of, as a starter point, I'll kind of dissect the different elements of the platform that you have. So this is, as you can see, this is my profile, my home, and there's all updates. There's my observations. I can find that here and here. I can edit the observations that I've logged. We can go on to my observations, and that sort of gives you an idea. So there's the number of observations that I logged, the number of different species, the people that I've helped identify what I've logged, and you see a map. So the map, the black dots represent where I've logged things. All right, so that's kind of, and you can see that in a grid or on a map. So second one, so it's not just for terrestrial, for marine stuff. This was a moth in our bathroom. I wanted to know what that was. I took a photo, chuck it on iNaturalist, because I'm not a moth specialist and I don't have time. I don't have moth. And so I chuck things in there and people tell me what's in my home every now and then when I see something cool on my balcony or whatever. So I can see the species that I've logged, and they're organized by the most observations to the least. So I've logged the most observation: sea dragons, big belly seahorse, common biscuit sea star. And if I move down the bottom, and it will take time to load, I mostly log marine species, but not always. So as we move towards the bottom is less observations. So the rarer things that I've seen and logged on iNaturalist.
How many bathroom moths?
No,
One.
well, there's a few, there must be a few insects in there from our balcony, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, mostly marine for me, but anyway, you get the gist. So that's your sort of your little space where you can keep track of what you've logged. In community, so there's different projects. So we'll talk about projects in a bit. There's the identify function where you can jump in and help people identify what they've logged. So on iNaturalist, the minimum required to log an observation is the date, the location, and what you've seen. So that's called taxa. In some cases, the taxa is fancy name. It could be a species per se, but it doesn't have to be as precise as that level. So it could be ISO an elasmobranch, which is the ray and shark family, and you don't know what it is. That's the group that it sits in. So the taxa can be as specific as a species when you go all the way down the classification level, but doesn't have to be if you don't necessarily know. Say I've seen an echinoderm. An echinoderm is, you know, oceans and sea stars and Bruton stars and sea cucumbers. You might not know what it is. You know it's in this family. So the taxa is what you log it under. So you don't have to go all the way down to species. It can be whatever you are comfortable identifying.
You can also just put life if you have no idea what you're
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Every now and then you will
I can't work this fucking
see that you
stupid
have
thing
no idea
out.
what it is, and you can ask those
Hmm?
scientists, and that was a suggestion from Tiffany. So sometimes we take a photo of something, we have no idea what it is, we just call it life. And then let people that have more time or more expertise than us jump in and help identify it.
What if you don't know the fancy Latin names?
That's fine. So you can search. Okay, I'll go on to that when I talk about logging observations, but let's keep it in the back of our mind. Remind me if I forget to mention it. What if you don't know the fancy Latin name? The answer is you don't have to, but we'll go on to that when we log observations. So yeah, in identify, you can help if you have specific expertise, you can help identify things that come up. So there's no specific marine example here. Oh, no, not really. But you know, if you had, you can search.
But you must be able to filter that down a little bit, that page.
Sorry?
You must be able to filter that page down a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. So say Port Phillip Bay. And you might, yeah, okay. So we start getting some marine stuff, but not always. We also have some terrestrial stuff. But if you have some spare time and you want to have a play, okay, well, this one I recognize, for example. So blue dentate moss animal. Yep, that's what it is. So I will agree. That's what it is. If I don't agree, I will suggest what I think it is. And that person will get notified that, oh, you've identified this as something and someone disagree with you. And so there's different types of observation and they called, so we've got casual observations where you don't have photos, so no one can identify it. You'd say, well, hold on, what's the benefit of that? Well, for example, for species that are quite easy to identify and quite easy, like spider crabs. If you see a big pile of 1,000 of big crabs in Victoria, it's very likely it's spider crabs, nothing else. So, and we are at a stage of knowledge with our project that we know nearly nothing. So we don't want to miss out on information by requesting people to have photos. So they can have photos and say, I've seen thousands of spider crabs on the weekend at Rye, and I want to know, and I don't care if they have photos, because we can then go and investigate. I'd rather do that than miss out on the information. And if they've seen thousands of crabs that are, you know, the size of the palm of my hand, it's probably not going to be anything else anyway. So I don't necessarily need photos to have a good understanding that, yes, it might be my species of interest. So casual observations can be useful in a very targeted context, and you don't have to use photos. But ideally, when you log a photo, when you log an observation, sorry, you have a photo. And that means that scientists can come in, review their picture and say, yes, this is the species that you think it is, or no, and correct the identification. When two or more people agree on the identification on something, that observation become what's called research grade. So that means it's been validated that it's that species. On top of that, though, if people jump in and start disagreeing and going back and forth, it can downgrade that research grade identification. So there's a bunch of different criteria for research grades. You need either enough people who have agreed, yes, this is this species or this taxa. You need a location that's precise and can be verified in a date as well. All right, in the explore section, so I've talked you through my observation, where to find projects, but we'll talk about projects in a bit. In explore, you can look for whatever you're interested in. Someone shout a marine species they're interested in. Come on, surely. Blue devil, we'll do blue groper later. So,
What? Why?
well,
We want the
Because I-
proper now.
we'll do
The
those.
masters have spoken.
All right. So now you start seeing on this list that, and that's the problem with common name, and we go back to common versus Latin name. There's different things called blue devil, and this looks to be a plant. We'll see. Yeah, so that's a plant. Okay, not particularly what we had in mind when we typed that search. So you can type the common name. If you know the Latin name, you'll land on it. If you don't know, just have a look at what's logged. So there's blue demoiselle, also called blue devil, but that's also not what we were talking about just now. That's the third option down. And we have the Latin name here, but okay, let's have a look. So it's called Southern, the common name that is accepted within iNaturalist. It's called a Southern blue devil. Okay, we've got a bunch of observations here. We can see, you know, who's log observations. We can see it on a map if we want, other than on a grid. So, okay, that's the map of Australia here. So we can log on to that. And if we wanted to, okay, well, there's observation in Port Phillip Bay. I'm interested. Let's see what's happening here. Let's see where blue devils have been seen, and you can click on observations and have more details. Okay. Here's an observation of the southern blue devil at Princeton.
They're tasty, are they, Grant?
Not bad. It's the flesh.
Okay, blue groper. We called it blue groper. Well, there's eastern blue groper and western blue groper. So already we're having a bit more information. That's not just one species. So we can click on one. Let's say eastern blue groper. I'll be on the on the east coast. So we need to zoom out. See that? Okay. There are blue groper observations. So that's, if I was to plan a trip and I wanted to see blue gropers, that's where All right, so that sort of starts giving you an idea of how you can use it. Okay, I'm planning a trip.
Western.
Want to see the Western?
Yeah.
We can do that. Western blue. Okay, there we go.
That's not really Western, isn't it?
Well, it's like that pipefish that we found in Tassie. That's the Western form. There's the East Coast. Yeah. Anyway.
They're both listed in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think there've been observations, at least that I know of, at St. Leonard's. I mean, we can zoom in.
They'll say that the western one is from Wilson, anywhere west of Wilson's Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's few observations, the blue dots here around the bay.
There was some.
Even Portsea,
The Eastern
Sorrento.
came up there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. So. Yeah.
This is the centre of scuba diving.
This is the heart. It's the heart and the soul.
All right, so yeah, that's kind of how things look. And if you want to search, you can search species, but you can also search locations. So who's going on an exciting trip soon? And where are you going?
Tasmania.
Tasmania.
You got Lord Mayor.
So we'll just do Eagle Float Connect. We might have to okay, so well, obviously it's a small place, so it has some marine observations, but also some terrestrial observations. So on that, someone very clever with a lot of time created a marine filter. And I thought I had the tab open, but I don't, so I'll just search it. iNaturalist marine filter. So because you start seeing, okay, well, what you're showing me here, the list that we've looked at, that has terrestrial stuff, and you might not be interested in terrestrial stuff, and that's fine. So someone clever actually built a marine filter. Actually, I have the link in the presentation, so I'll just do that. That's easier. And you'll see, so that's a marine filter. So someone created that. And that will show you only marine taxa. That's all right. Only marine taxa and only in Australia. Someone created this by hand. There's a bunch of criteria. And yep, I can share. That's a long link, but that's now in the chat. So, went away. I'll start that again. All right, so that's the list, but if we wanted to see it on a map, I think, no. Sorry, all of that. Yep, it's fine. Okay, so now we see that where these observations are logged, this is just a marine filter for Australia. So if you say traveling to an Australian location and you're only interested in marine species, what might I see in this place? So we'll go to Tassie because we're all excited about that, myself included. And let's put a border around it to narrow it down to the area we might go. Okay, so there's 777 species listed here, so we can have a look and we can start sort of exploring what might we see. And this is not all the species there are to see here. That's the species that have been logged on this platform. So there might be others that have not been logged, but that sort of starts giving you an idea.
And to drill down further, you use that filter button on the top right hand, is that it?
To drill down to species. Yeah. So if you wanted sharks.
Oh, there, okay, yeah.
Elasmo branch, sharks and rays, or just sharks, you could narrow it down and say go. It will still look within that border.
Yep.
Okay, so in terms of sharks in the area in Tassie that we've identified, we could expect to see botwort sharks, rusty carpet shark, short fin mako, blue sharks, Port Jackson sharks, Australian angel shark, gummy sharks, amphibians, and broad-nosed silver. That's what's been logged in that area. So you can, start having a look at where you're interested in. All right, so I will go back to the presentation. Just to briefly talk about, not yet. So what might be the benefits of using iNaturalist, both for yourself? Some reason, okay. All right. So there'll be both benefits to yourself, and it could be I want to automate a log. So, in this cool dolphins or goblin fish or whatever, and you want to have that as a record. And I don't know how many of you, but certainly I do have thousands and thousands and thousands of photos, and unless I spend hours and hours and hours tagging everything, it's really hard to search my library unless I tag everything with species name, etc., and places and dates, and which I do, but that takes hours. So that's a sort of easy. I want to remember this thing. I'll chuck it on iNaturalist. It's there. I can access it from whenever. I don't have to have my hard drive or my flash drive or whatever. I want to show someone, I can log on to the website and show them. If you're someone who wants to learn how to identify things, that's great. You'll log something. The AI, I'll go back to the platform in a sec, but the AI of iNaturalist will give you a clue as to what the species is. Now, this clue can be really accurate, or it can be really, really, really inaccurate. And that depends on how many species of that species of taxa is logged on the website. So if the website, if iNaturalist has thousands of photos of smooth rays, chances are it will be pretty good at identifying smooth rays. If it has 50 photos of goblin fish, which, by the way, looks like, no, I didn't put it in there. I thought I did. Anyway, I will go on to that in a sec. If it has 50 photos of something like a goblin fish, it will struggle probably identifying when you log it. So take what the AI tells you with a grain of salt, depending on how many images it has been trained on. That can be accurate and that can be not so accurate. And it depends on places as well. Being in the US, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot more, because I think iNaturalist originated from the US, or there's more people in the US that uses it. So it might be a lot more accurate places in Australia. Please, if I'm wrong, just correct me. So yeah, that kind of helps you work out through your ID skills. You'll identify something. You might rely on the AI or not to tell you what the AI thinks it is, but people will jump in and help. So you log something as a sea star. I don't know what it is. It's a sea star. It looks like a star. It has a tough skin. That's all I know. It must be a sea star. And someone will come in saying, oh, well, it's an 11-arm sea star, or it's a, biscuit sea star, or whatever. And then you can interact with the people that have suggested an identification on your observations. So, oh, okay, it's a Tostia australis, so kind of biscuit sea star. You can ask them why, what are the features that made you think it was that? And usually the community is quite open and they will tell you, well, it has this colors, it has this patterns, it has this many arms, therefore that's what it is. So you can start learning by building a relationship with the people that respond or identify the observations that you log. I don't know about yourself, but with the camera and the dive gear, I'm always at or over the limit that I can travel with when I go overseas. So I'm not going to take all my books that can help me identify things. So iNaturalist can be a good replacement for that. If you can have all your guides and, you know, the fish book and the sea slug book and everything, that's great. You might not have the space or the weight to limit to take them with you. So
I
Yep.
can just say, I can vouch for you, that you don't travel light.
yes, I don't travel like that. I still don't take my books. And for example, on Hogan, which is a good example, which I still don't travel like, but at least I don't take my library of books with me. But I've got that library with me that I can refer to and identify things on the go. So, yep.
You need a bigger boat.
Yeah, I know.
She's still
You sure
smuggled,
you did mention it.
still smuggled in the drone though.
So, yeah, there's benefits like that to yourself, whether it's keeping a record, learning how to identify marine life, preparing for a trip. For me as a photographer, it's like, well, am I expecting macro or wide subject? So you can search a place and be like, okay, that's what turns up in this place. Should you dive during the day, or are there interesting things to see at night? So you can do a search and be like, okay, that's what I'm expecting to see. And if you travel to some destinations like North Wales, that was my first trip for me in that context, where you have a guide and you can tell them, I want to see this, I want to see that. So you need to know what to expect. And then you can, you know, go on a hunt with your guide to see specific things. And of course, benefits to scientists. So it's generating data. For those who know me personally, they know that it's been a big struggle to get money for spider crab research, for example. We are unfortunately in a nation that could value environmental sciences more. And yes, so marine research is very expensive. Logistically, it's complicated. So compared to terrestrial research, it's even harder to, you know, implement research projects over the long term and get good data. But at the same time, recreational divers like us, we're all out there noticing things, and really depending on the state of knowledge, but like spider crabs, there's such low knowledge that every photo can add information, very valuable information about spider crab ecology. And we don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get that data. So that's obviously adding data in a context that marine environments are hard to study, it's hard to get funding. So, you know, every bit of information that we have that we can provide as divers is very valuable. Now, the other benefit to scientists other than data is sort of outreach and community interest. It's hard enough, like for spider crabs, there's interest in the community, but the Department of Environment might look at iNaturalist and say, well, how many people have participated in this project? How many people have logged observations as a proxy for how much community interest there is in something? And it's a lot easier to get funding and traction to implement a research project if you can back it up by this is how much community interest there's been. So I've had people privately message me and telling me, oh, spider crabs are here and there, and that's amazing, but that's something that the broader, you know, context won't see. So the government won't know that there's 50 people messaging me about spider crabs and having an interest in spider crabs if there's like 5 observations on iNaturalist. So yes, it's data, but it's also tools like iNaturalist are a powerful tool to show community interest in a species or a group of species or project. And sea slugs are a bit of the same as well. They're very charismatic species, and They get a lot of interest, and now they've moved to iNaturalist. Probably partly because of that, because they used to have observations emailed to them directly, but now it's out there on iNaturalist. There's this many people participating. I'll try to go a bit faster because I'm running out of time, but because I've had this question before. So there's 3 types of projects. So you can log your observations as they are, but you can also, in some cases, attach them to a project. So people have asked me in the past, what are iNaturalist projects? So there's 3 types of project. One is umbrella. But essentially that's a bunch of projects that have the same structure and the same theme together. So BioBlitzes are a good example, where a BioBlitz is where you get told between this date and this date in this place, we want you to log whatever you see. Does it have to be marine? But it can be. There's marine BioBlitzes. So in this example, City Nature Challenge 2020, but they've had it in other years. They've been Adelaide, Geelong, Sydney, and I can't see Redland City, Queensland. So they were the same projects, just different locations. So they bunched them up together. It's called an umbrella project. Traditional projects is projects where you have to add your observation onto, like spotted crab watch. So, or sea slope. Marine life of Victoria. So you go, okay, I want to put my observation in there. The reason why it's not retrieved automatically is because some of these projects are asking for extra information. So in the case of spotted crab watch, roughly how many spotted crabs did you see? Was it 1 to 5, 5 to 10, hundreds, thousands, whatever? Did you see any molting, etc.? So these projects are typically made to collect extra information on top of you have a photo, a location, and a date, but we want you to answer a few questions about what you've seen. And then there's collection projects. In collection projects, you can't purposely add observations onto. They have a bunch of criteria and they retrieve the information as you log them. So Australian fish, for example, is a project. Australia and New Zealand fish. So they have the criteria. It has to be a fish. It has to be in Australia or New Zealand. They have a buffer, like a place. They have a list of species that are fish. And so you don't have to add your observation onto that. But if you fit the criteria, that project will display it straight away. I'll go on a bit of a demonstration, but if you're wondering, so there's superstars out there that log most things that they see, and that's amazing, but you might not have the time. So you might wonder, okay, if I have limited time and I want to log something on iNaturalist, what do I do? So things that are interest might be threatened species, novel species. I call them novel rather than feral or invasive, because I think that's a bit on the nose for us to call anything invasive or feral. But anyway, that's my thing, and I'll leave it there. Whatever interests you, whatever you want to learn about. If it's sea slugs, log sea slugs. Get your skills up in identifying sea slugs. If it's fish, so be it. If it's seals, dolphins, whatever marine mammals, do that. Or whatever helps a specific project you want to support. So it could be spotted crab stings, sea slugs, whatever projects you're into, and you might hear of different projects popping up for using iNaturalist as a platform. What's also interesting is, just interesting behavioral observations. So you see something predate another creature, or you see them mate, or you see different behaviors. That's something that's, as scientists, we can't observe easily. Or you see spawning. We were at Sorrento. There was Tiffany Corey and Max and someone else, I don't remember, or just us, last year, about a year ago. And we saw echinoderms, sea stars and sea oceans spawn. There's just like, and that's, I was then on iNaturalist, on Facebook telling people about this, asking what was going on, what we knew about the phenomenon. We know nothing. Nothing's really been logged. So, okay, chuck it on iNaturalist and you can put some notes on what you observe, and at least that's a record of it. Before I go on to a bit of a demonstration, I just want to quickly talk about caveats. So, when I say lack of data, it means not all species or all taxa are logged on iNaturalist. There might be rare or uncommon taxa or species that are just not logged there. No one has really observed them or logged them before. So don't tell. So your field books, field guides will be a lot more accurate. You might not be able to take them everywhere with you, so that's a good replacement when you know that not all of it is going to be on iNaturalist. And some people misidentify things, and sometimes you only have one observation to rely on. Sometimes you've got 10, so it's a lot more accurate. So just take what's on iNaturalist with a grain of salt. The AI, as I said before, when it suggests what species something might be, again, take it with a grain of salt, because if it's a species that's not been recorded very often, it probably won't be very accurate. And sometimes there's user errors as well. You've logged something, it's the wrong date, it's the wrong place. That's happened to me a few times. Luckily, people have tagged me in the post saying, hey, I don't think this biscuit sea star is in Japan. Well, no, it's not in Japan. It was in Port Phillip Bay. Thank you very much for letting me know. I will correct that. So there's user errors, and the iNaturalist is a big, it's worldwide. There's, millions of observations out there. So it's not a platform that checks things and flag this might not be accurate. So just bear that in mind. But when you know about the caveats, I think it can be a very powerful tool. So I'll just go very quickly onto like a quick demo. I've got a minute left, so I'll keep it short. But to show you how to log something. So there's the upload. No, I'm not seeing that. Yeah, I'm not sharing that. Sorry. I will go. Okay, share screen. Oh, share that one. All right, so you have that there. Oh, yes, you do. You go to the upload button. Or if you're uploading, so if you're interested in a project like Marine Life of Victoria, which is worth having a look at because it's local and there's a lot of good information there. So Marine Life of Victoria, you can see how many observations has been logged, how many species, how many people participate. You can add observations directly onto that project if it's relevant, if it's a species that is marine and in Victoria. Regardless of whether you go through the project or through the upload function, you get a similar interface. So I'm now switching on to the upload function. It's just going to.
So, sorry, Elodie, is that particular marine life, do you have to tag that or it will collect?
Yes.
So
if you're doing it through the project directly, like I did before, you don't have to tag it because it's adding it to that project directly. So that's easy. And it tells you, add an observation to Marine Life of Victoria. But if you upload it via the upload function and you find your photos, so I'll show you what this looks like. So I've got photos from Sorrento not long ago. So I'll open these ones. Okay, so I've got 4 photos of the same octopus, but I do want to keep those 4 photos. I'll combine them just because they show different angles and octopus change color and pattern so quickly and so so quickly that I want to keep those photos together. So I'll combine them. So now I've got 2. I've got this octopus. We can see, okay, let's see what the AI suggests. Okay, typical octopuses. Pretty sure it's in the family, sure, but that's still pretty wide. it actually has the Southern Sand Octopus, which is pretty close, but this thing, I think, is a white, Southern White hotspot, I think it's called. Southern White spot. Is that coming? Will come up? So you can look at the recommendation, and if it doesn't look right, you can log it. If you don't know what it is, log it as the broader. It's an octopus. We know it's an octopus. I don't know. I don't need to know whether it's a Southern Sand Octopus or Southern White Spot Octopus. You can put it as your broader guess, and other people will jump in and say, this is this, this is this. You can ask them why. But in this case, I know this is likely to be a Southern White Spot Octopus. I'll log it as that. And then this picture, I'll open it up so you can see it. It's goblin fish. So
I was just gonna say real quick,
Yep.
if you select the location first, then it will also narrow it down to what could be there.
thank you. That is a good, very, very good comment, that if you select them and put in the location first, then it will rely on the way the picture looks. I think it's this, but also based on what's in your area, this is what's likely to be there. All right, so this was Sorrento. If we just click on Sorrento, we're in a completely different place. Looks like, I don't know, Italian or something, right? So you've got to remember that iNaturalist is global, right? So you've got to help it. Now, Sorrento, big, or even Sorrento Pier, big. Ah, look, now we're in the right place. If anyone's familiar with Sorrento, we've now landed where we needed to land. So you've got to realize that this platform is global, and you've got to help it with locations. If you can either search with a location, or you could put a point on a map. Roughly look at a map of the bay, and you're like, okay, I was roughly there, whatever. Or if you have coordinates, because you have an awesome Garmin watch, no one pays me to say that, but with my Garmin, I can get a point for my dive sub, and then I can enter the latitude and the longitude. That's even more precise. And well, let's go back. Okay, Sorrento Pier. Thick. All right, it's there. And if you want to increase the radius because you did a bigger dive or whatever, you can, or you can make it small.
Don't make it too big, you'll pick up the fish shop.
All right, so we'll say, okay, update observation with that location. And then let's see, actually, maybe the suggestions have changed. Yeah, so now it says visually similar and expected nearby. So that narrows down to what you might see in this area. It still doesn't have the species that I think it is. So I'll go back to typing it. So Southern, what's yeah, that one. And then we had the goblin fish. We've identified that. That's cool. You can put some notes if you want. Night dive at Sorrento Pier, or whatever. That can be for you as much as scientists that might look at this. So night dive at Sorrento. Now, the location can be public, which means it's visible by everyone. If you want to protect, so to speak, the information, you can either put the location as obscure. That means when it's displayed on a map, it will be displayed in a random point within a certain radius, which might be 5 or 10 kilometers, depends on where you are. So it might actually be on land, your observation of marine species. It's just you can't pinpoint to the real location. Or you can put the location as private, which then won't show on a map at all. Let's just say there's this observation of this species. It won't say where it is. So, you know, if you're interested in threatened species that might be disturbed, that's something you might want to do.
Yeah.
Now, going back to John's question, I have gone through the normal upload, so now I can add projects, and I usually do that because I might add different projects. So I might have marine life with Victoria, but if it's a sea slug, I might also do Victorian nudibranch. If it's a seahorse, I might do ice seahorse. If it's a crabs, I might do crabs of the world. These are
So-
projects.
But that requires you to have some familiarity with
That's
what
right.
projects are available.
That's right. So when I'm interested in a place, where I go to a new place, I will search on iNaturalist what projects are around that might be of interest to me. Fish of South Australia, when we went to do a South Australian diving road trip. Marine life of Christmas Island, when we went to Christmas Island with James. So you don't have to do this, but you can do the extra search and know what projects might be available. Now, again, there are projects that will automatically retrieve. So this goblin fish observation, I don't have to tag the project, but it will regardless show up in Australian fish. I don't have to do anything. It will show that. Same for the sea slug census ones. You don't have to tag the project. The project has requirements that if it's between this date and this date and in this state, in the state of Victoria, it will drag it to that project and display it in that project. So you don't have to tag it. But if you want to, you could tag Victorian nudibranch on top.
Yeah.
It will then be added onto that project. You don't have to, but you can. And as you build your knowledge, you might like, or someone can tag you on iNaturalist and say, hey, great photos. Thank you for sharing your observations. Next time, could you please tag our project? Because they want it.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I might, if I have a crab in Victoria, I might do both marine life of Victoria and crabs of the world. If I have a sea slug, I might do both marine life of Victoria and Victorian nudibranch. So I can add whatever projects I want here. Again, you don't have to do this, but you can. And there are fields that you can fill up, but you don't have to. So I usually do diving. So I usually do it for all the observation categories. So you don't have to do it over and over and over again, and it gets really tedious. Okay, so diving. So I want to say that this observation was taken during diving. So I'll add this field. And then I want to say the water temperature is this. The average depth is this. But you don't have to do this, but you can. And that's extra information that scientists can use, essentially. Maximum depth, yeah, water temperature. There's this specific spot of question. Anyway, whatever. You can add all this stuff. And then you just submit the observations and it will work its magic. In the case of the gobbling fish, in a minute, that will appear in the Australian Fish Project without me having to tag it or do anything else. But if we go to, and it might take a minute, I don't know how reactive it will be, but let's just see. We'll view observation. It might have automatically added its observations. Let's see. It might be as quick as this. Yeah, my gobbling fish is here now. So I tag this project, Marine Life of Australia, it's there now. And if I go to Australia's
And the octopus.
and the octopus, yep, there it is, yep. Australasian fish. Let's have a look. See, yep, it's there too. I haven't tagged this project. This project has these requirements that if it's a fish in Australia, I want it, I'll display it, so it's there now. And you can search things. Okay, I'm interested in what fish species I can see in Australia. And then Australian Fish Project is great for that. I'm interested in marine life in Victoria, then marine life in Victoria is great for that. I'll stop it there. I could cover a lot more, but I'll leave maybe a few minutes for questions and looking up. there anything that,
If you put a generic name and someone identifies the exact text, the exact species.
yep,
Once they've tagged it, does that automatically add that to your post, or do you have to go and agree for that to be changed?
you can both, but so you'll get a notification. So in that bubble there near your profile picture, you'll have notifications saying someone added an identification to an observation by you. Well, let's have a look. I don't know what this is, but we'll find out. Okay, so I identified this blob here as an isopod. And someone identified it further. It's not a species yet, but it's a typical sea pills. It's the family that this isopod sits in. So I can then be like, review this. What are typical sea pills to start with? Okay, and I can have a look at photos. Okay, yeah, I'm convinced. You've convinced me. I think it is that. I agree. Or you can disagree. If someone says this is something and you know for a fact it isn't, you can disagree on this. And then other people can jump in and add their opinion. And then when enough people agree that it is this or that, it will update the ID as this or that.
But if they're an industry expert, can they just tag it and then it's automatically done, or do I have to go back and agree to their expert knowledge?
You still have to agree.
Yep.
But then you start to get, and it's a really good community kind of feel, you start to get the experts in nudibranchs or in gastropods, in the shell snails, shell mollusks or whatever. And sometimes I will tag someone that I know is really good at something, and I might get an answer within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, to give an example, we were doing a group of other divers and I were doing reef life surveys. And so when we identify fish and invertebrates, and we're pretty good at it, identifying maybe 95% of things we see and take photos of. But every now and then we'll have something that's like, don't know what this is. We look at our books, we don't know what it is. But we know someone on iNaturalist will respond within 40 minutes, 30 minutes in that case. Yeah. Some people, so you can follow on iNaturalist a taxa or group. I follow spider crabs. So I get the photos that are logged and I give my opinion. Yes, I think it's a spider crabs, or no, I don't think it's a spider crabs. And some people do that with whatever group of interest they have, whether it's rays or sharks or whatever, sea slugs. And so you kind of get to identify the people that are on the platform all the time that are really good at identifying such and such. And then you can even tag them if you're after something quick. Like for us, we have to submit the data quickly after the surveys. And it's like, yeah, okay, I have the books, I've looked at it, I'm not convinced, I don't know, I need a quick answer. I'll chuck it in there and have an answer within sometimes an hour. It's on a weekend or whatever, it's usually people on there, and it's just like amazing in terms of the responsiveness, because you can have you can have your books and go through your books and say, oh, I still don't know, just look the wrong color, the wrong size. But then people that study these groups, they've seen all the variation and they're like, yeah, this is this, and you can trust their opinion. And yes, quite amazing in terms of learning, and I've learned so much in the past few years. It's just been amazing. And then just as a cool thing.
So when your observation gets reviewed by someone else and they suggest something else, that updates the descriptor of your observation?
It does if enough people agree that it is that. So if you agree that yes, if someone like in the example before, I logged it as isopod and that person said it's typical sea pills. Now I've agreed to it that people agreeing that this is that, it will appear as that. Now then, after we someone might say, I know the species and suggest the actual species. I might review that and say, oh, gee, you're right. This is this species. I'll agree to it and it'll apply it. It will change the idea and become research grade. And as you see in my first isopod one, that's now crossed out. It says ID withdrawn because I've now agreed that this is a lower level. So yes, it's an isopod, but now we know that it's a CPL. So now we'll show under typical CPL because 2 people have agreed. Yeah.
Thank you.
And feature in terms of keeping track of your own things. iNaturalist has this thing, cool thing like, I don't know, Spotify or whatever, you year in review, and you can see what's been happening. You can view your own stats and, oh, in this year I've logged this many observations for this many species, and you can sort of see cool plots. You have an animation of where your observations were. So if you went on cool trips and you logged that, it appears on the map. You can be very, very proud of yourself. You can see your most commented and favorite photos can be in your favorite or in people's favorite. Anyway, there's cool graph. There's cool ways to see, okay, what you've seen. There's lots of scientific words here, but I think it's quite fun to keep track, and it's a bit of a competition. And Marine Life of Victoria, for example, you can see who's logged what. Marine Life of Victoria, if you look at the project, I think, do you tag this project?
No.
I didn't think so, because I think you should be on top, but you're not.
Pretty interesting that's 40,000 observations from 200 people.
Yeah.
People that are in it are pretty active.
Yeah. And so what usually happens on iNaturalist is that there are people that are super active, and there's people that log 1 or 2 observations. There's usually not a lot of sort of in the middle. But yeah, it's interesting to see. So Ken, I would never dream of beating Ken. I've never met Ken, but more than 12,000 observations. Like, yeah.
And Nick
Like-
Shaw.
Yeah, Nick Shaw. So lots of sea slugs in there. You get the most species, most observed species, and you're like, you can, I want to beat Wayne next, or I want to beat Ken next, or good luck to me. But it's a bit of fun if you're into that. It's a bit of a game. It's a bit of learning. Yeah. Anyway, any other questions? I've exceeded my time, sorry, but hopefully that's been. I've been trying to cater to people that have no idea about iNaturalist and people who have and love things. So hopefully across the board, people have learned things and enjoy tonight's presentation. But again, feel free to email me if you have any questions, and I'm happy to help you out if you have any iNaturalist problems.
Thank you very much, Elodie.
That's right, actually.
Go back to the other desktop. It's gone.
Well,
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, we tried to use it all.
I'm terrible with the photos. Like, I haven't even left down over the last 6 months.
Well, yeah, it's- it is a
My
lot of
memory
work.
is full, the hard
Yeah.
drive is full of.
Yeah,
I've
God.
got to delete stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. All right, so we're going to kick off the photo comp in a few minutes, but just before that, we'll just do a quick round table of what's happening in the club. Over the last couple of months, I've started sending out email updates. Some people say they've never seen them, but I'm just trying to do just regular bulletins just to keep everyone more in the loop of what's happening on a week-to-week basis. Initially, I was sending them out with in conjunction with Walter's midweek call out, but now I'm just sending it as an independent once a week. this is also part of an effort by the committee to try and keep down the total volume of emails. So it's possible, maybe just email me direct. If you've got a message that needs to go out to the club, but it's not urgent, flick it through to me and I'll try and combine all the newsy bits from week to week in that.
I think that's good, incidentally. That works well. It
Yeah.
gets bunch of information in one spot, so you don't have to keep searching through 4 or 5 different emails to find it.
That's
So,
good feedback. Yep. I've also found since I'm doing those with the hot links embedded that we're getting a lot of booking responses onto events straight after they go out because it's very convenient to click through. Fathoms is very close to public